First, I wanted to say that I love being among you guys, and I'm excited to be with you for many reasons. But actually, what's also really nice about being among you guys is that I have like different. There's such a diverse group that I know most of the people on I know from CTR. Some I know because like they're my family, and then some I know from the East Coast, and some I know from Hawaii mission trips that I did like like maybe 5 or 10 years back. So I don't remember how long ago it was. So it's pretty exciting. Um, the other thing I wanted to say is a little bit about me, is that so my day job is in finance. I've been working in finance. I have a master's and an MBA in finance, and I've been working at big banks my whole career. And so that's like gives me some knowledge. But also, I have another master's in marriage and family therapy. So, and the reason why I did that was not so I can change my career, but just because I care so much about couples and families and healthy marriage and healthy relationships. And it's like what God has intended for marriage is so much greater than anything that the world tells us. And I really want us to receive from God what He wants to give us. So the last thing I wanted to tell you to intro is what I am not planning to talk to you about. Okay, I just want to tell you what I'm not planning to talk to you about. I am not planning to give you like specific investment advice. Like I'm not going to tell you where to invest your money. I'm not going to tell you what decisions to make. Okay, so because as you'll see as we go through this, so much of what you're going to execute on is very much this like negotiation, not in a bad way. It's a negotiation between two different people. And that's actually what marriage is about. For the first few years of marriage, as anyone who's been married for a few years knows, you're pretty much just trying to learn what works for you, right? And sometimes you have to unlearn what everyone told you should work for you, right? So like and sometimes that becomes an obstacle to like more quickly learning what works for you as a couple. This is all about what works for you as a couple and having a healthy perspective. So what I do want to do is give you a framework and a way to think about things. And I also put in some content from a different talk that I gave about money and the heart, and just telling you how to be a good steward of money, because money, like any resource that God has given us, like our health, like our time, is something we need to be good stewards of. Can you all see my full slide? Because I can see some people, but I want to make sure that you don't see people. So I see people, but you shouldn't see people that I see on my thing. Okay, good. All right, so um, four key principles that are very, very important. First is perspective, right? We need to have perspective. Actually, perspective is very, very important, because sometimes we get so like obsessed, or very like we hold on so tightly to certain things. Money is important, but it's not the most important thing in your relationship. Actually, we can say that about many things in marriage and many things in relationships. We can actually say the same thing about sex, right? It's important, but it's not the most important thing in your relationship, right? So we need to keep that in perspective, because sometimes you go really, really crazy over money and we let it consume us. The other key principle is about skills. Communication and compromise matter a lot in this area. So much of what happens, the problems that happen around money, are actually not money problems at all. They're just communication problems. They're problems that have to do with our like inability to compromise. And that's something that we need to keep in mind.
Hey,
Number
Makar,
three,
Makar,
yeah, yeah.
sorry to interrupt. It's your voice is a little bit low. Can you try to?
Sure, sure. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah,
I really
thanks.
appreciate
Yeah.
that feedback. Just give me one sec. I think I know how to fix that. Okay. Hopefully it's better now, but Sean, like anybody, okay, just interrupt me, guys, if you need something or if you have questions too. All right. So perspective is extremely important. Skills are very, very important. Number three is integrity, right? Full transparency, full transparency, full, like everything, like our credit scores, how much money we owe, how much money like we owe, but that isn't like showing up on anything because I really owe it to my mom and I owe her $10,000, right? Or whatever it is because she helped me with something, whatever it is, right? Full transparency is of utmost importance. And the last key principle is education. We just need to learn, like we simply need to learn about money and how to manage it. I'm just adjusting my thing here. Okay. So the next point is that we all come into marriage with different origins. Like we're coming from a different perspective. And you need to appreciate this point because like you and your partner are not like, you can't just expect to agree on everything actually, right? You can't. And I'm just showing you like a spectrum here. I promise I didn't like take myself on one side and my wife on the other side. But I'm just showing you a spectrum and like just see how much diversity there can be in two people coming together, right? Partner one, lots of student loan debt, lots of cash and savings, lived with parents up until marriage. So that's kind of like doesn't know how to use money, like, or doesn't have lots of experience using money to live day to day, right? And spending. Just graduated from school, parents manage their finances, doesn't believe in credit cards, like some people are like that, whatever. Again, I'm not telling you what to do in this talk. Doesn't own a car, minimal retirement savings, hates owing anybody money, and very much dislikes managing money. That's like a description of one end of a spectrum. The other end is no student loan debt, but no, much less cash and savings, right? Lived alone, that's a big thing, right? Because someone who's lived alone has like they probably have a way of being, a way of living, right? And they've kind of have a way of spending on their living and stuff like that. 5 years of work experience, manage their own finances, has credit cards, no revolving balances, owns a car, like contributes to retirement, has like this thing where they're okay with debt as long as savings are on track, and loves to manage money. The point here is that we go into marriage with very different perspectives, right? It's just a fact, right? And what I find actually like a great assumption is that couples on everything are like very different on many things, right? Just a good assumption, right? Like partners are different on many things. So a lot of what you're doing in marriage is understanding, learning, and accepting that God, like, and I don't mean to go into too much marriage stuff here, but I just care about it so much, is that God in marriage is putting a mirror up in your face, right? In marriage, God is putting a mirror in your face and is saying, nobody ever told you that you're really bad at expressing anger. Bam, spouse, right in your face, right? Nobody ever told you that you need to learn something about managing money besides like just spending however you want. Bam, spouse, right in your face, right? So God uses marriage to reveal himself to you and to perfect you, right? And this applies also in money, right? Like we have to accept that like a couple that is destined for like relational disaster is one where they cannot accept influence from each other. Full stop, right? Like if you cannot accept influence from each other, your marriage is going to end like either legally or just emotionally, like very quickly, right? We have to accept influence from each other. That's extremely that is like marriage, because that's our relationship with God, right? Like we have to accept influence from him every day. So you come in with different perspectives. All right. Now I want to tell you another thing. And again, I'm just throwing these points out there because I'm not trying to give you like specific answers. The other thing is values and goals. Values and goals. Values are the why and goals are the what. Okay. Please, I'm going to tell you, don't discuss the what before you discuss the why. And the why is it takes more time. It's a lot of abstract talk. It's like a lot of like, how do you feel about this? What do you think about that type of talk, right? The what is like, okay, so this is what we want to do, right? And then after that, you start to establish priorities. And I'm going to provide, maybe Sean, I can send to you or to someone, some tools that you can use, and I'll also put them up on the screen in a moment. So values are the why. Values motivate and guide the decisions that you make, right? And it's kind of like, why do I care about something? Like, why do I care about it, right? What does money mean to me? Like we think like money is just money, right? But actually, like money means something to people, right? And for some people, it's status. Like when they have money, it's a status thing, right? They want to like just kind of put themselves relative to a group of people, and they want to put themselves somewhere in there. And I'm not saying this is bad or good. I'm just saying like you want to maintain a certain status, and maybe that's what it means to you. Like, again, there's no need to even put a value judgment on that. I'm not using value the same way. For some people, it means security. Like when I have money, it makes me secure. And when money is less, I feel insecure, right? For some people, it's the freedom to enjoy things. And for some people, it's control, right? Misalignment on values between partners creates a ton of misunderstanding. Why does my spouse, why does my partner care about this or about that? Like why, right? What was their family of origin, like the family they grew up in? Like what were their values and messages about money, right? Like how did they handle debt? How did they handle money? What did they think about income, right? And there's so many cultural aspects of it too. Once you've spent, let me actually just show you right now on my screen a few things. So first, I'm going to share this with you guys, all these materials. This is Prepare and Rich, which many of you, if you haven't done it, it's like a very good framework and like program that many people do for marital counseling or premarital counseling. And this, what I'm showing here is one of a few pages in the workbook that they have when a couple is kind of like needs to grow more in their ability to manage finances. So they have an exercise to help them understand what the meaning of money is for them, right? So each partner does this little survey thing, and then you put it together, and actually you get the status, security, enjoyment, control. So I use that to put that up on the side. And then it gives you things to discuss, like how do you value money similarly and differently? And then priorities and things like that, like, you know, how do these things fit? And then some things to discuss, and then some goals, and I'll go to the worksheet later, and then some verses. I also wanted to show you that this point about values is not just like a marital counseling thing, right? This here is from SoFi. SoFi is a like a small like fintech bank, right? And I got this worksheet when I was like engaging them for financial advice, right? For my family. They said, here, can you fill this out before we talk, right? So, and you see, this is straight up from a bank, right? Family values and goals setting worksheet. And it's a different like structure or a different set of things, but here it is, right? For each person, each partner circles the things that matter more to them, their core values, right? And then they say what matters to them both and what, as a family, are going to be your core values, right? So, any questions on values so far, or anything that I've said? All right, are you guys? Let me just like check the videos and make sure people are paying attention. Are you guys paying attention? You guys are engaged? All right, okay, good. All right, all right. So that's values. Now back here to goals. Goals is the what. Please, my brothers and sisters, like do not complain about anything when it comes to money until you've discussed goals. That's it. Okay, like I'm just trying to, that's a shortcut in marriage. Okay, like, so don't be like, oh, you're spending too much, did we really need to buy that, should we all that. No. Why would you, what is too much and what is too little if you don't have goals, right? So you need to agree on goals in order to say, because we're not meeting our goals, or in order to meet our goals, we shouldn't spend this or we shouldn't spend that, right? There's no need to waste time arguing about a specific expense or about a specific anything until you've established goals. And that shows you how important it is to have goals, right? And of course, you can't have goals until you do the values first, right? So that's extremely, extremely important, right? So having clear goals helps you to determine your financial health at any point in time. Because are you good or are you not good financially? How do you even answer that question if you don't have goals? Like, how do you know that you're good, right? Like having $1 million seems great, but it could be really bad if you need to buy, like, you need to, I don't know, you need to do, so you have a major healthcare issue, or you need to put a down payment on a house, or whatever you need to do. And maybe I should have used $100,000. But having $100,000 could be good or could be like not good, right? But how do you know if you don't have goals? What goals do you want to have in the next 3 to 5 years? You pay off student loans. You have to discuss that, right? You can't just assume, because a partner that has a value of I hate debt, never have debt, that will affect the goal of pay off student loans immediately, right? The partner that's okay with debt and wants to invest, that will affect the goal of pay off student loans immediately, right? Buy a house, go on a big vacation every year. Some couples don't care about vacations. Some couples don't care about big vacations. What does big vacation even mean, right? You guys got to decide, all right, for yourselves. All right. All right. Feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. I'll just keep going. All right. I also want to throw in these two primary roles. Okay. And this is really important because like disorganization and lack of clarity around roles in marriage can inadvertently lead to financial problems. And also it can lead to conflict. So financial problems, which are not conflict, and it can lead to conflict, which is conflict, right? So the two roles are the administrative and the executive, right? The administrative is like a chore in the household. It's like a chore. It's like doing the dishes. Okay, it's like doing the dishes. It's like taking out the garbage, getting the laundry done, right? It's administrative. Ensuring bills are paid on time, ensuring there are enough funds and accounts to cover bills, research opportunities to save or improve wealth. This is a chore, right? And usually, and I'm not, again, usually, but not all the time, but usually, it's best for one partner to be responsible for this. Usually when in couples, usually each partner is good in something over the other. Like in some things, some are good at this and some are good at that, and some are good at this and the other is not good at the same thing the other is good at, right? So the administrative responsibility, usually there's one person who's like good at, managing the finances, checking the accounts, making sure all the paperwork is going. There's a lot of like just paperwork, right? It's just paperwork and numbers and calculations, and it's boring for usually one partner, but less boring for the other partner. Okay, so that's the administrative role. That is a chore, and usually for one partner. The executive role is different, right? The executive role is different. The executive role is a responsibility of both the husband and the wife, and this is the decision-making role, right? And please be careful about this because usually like a common conflict in couples is that the partner who's doing the administrative role, it's usually like quick for them. Like they got it. They're already in the numbers all the time. They're in the paperwork all the time. They're already doing the research, so they already have so many facts. They've already like reached so many conclusions. They're far along in a journey when it comes to a decision, right? But then the other partner who's not who doesn't have the administrative role still has an equal voice, an equal vote, right? And you have to be really careful not to ever, in marriage in general, but and in finances too, never move forward as in a decision and like, hoping your partner, your spouse is going to come along, or you're going to drag your partner with you. Always choose the relationship. If it means you have to slow down, if it means you have to give up an opportunity, right? It's much better to have a healthy marriage and have less money than to have a ton of money and have an unhealthy marriage, right? So it's always about the marriage and about the relationship. So when it comes to decision making, this is both have to be engaged. A word to the spouse or the partner who's not carrying the administrative role, which is like, please lean in, right? Like lean in. If your spouse knows all this stuff and is doing all this research and you're comfortable with them, but at a minimum, just like lean in a little bit, because you never want to have a situation, right? And you can clarify. You can say like, honestly, like for this, it's like, I don't really care. Like do whatever you want. I trust you. Do whatever you want. That's fine. But you also just need to be sure about that, because if your spouse makes a decision because you told them they can make the decision, and then you come back later and you say, you shouldn't have done that, all this stuff, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have that, why did you do this, why didn't you choose it? Or how about that idea, and then you're complaining, but actually you didn't lean in and like fulfill part of your responsibility. That's not a great thing. So the executive role is to decide, it comes in when deciding to make big investments, deciding what big even means, right? What does big even mean? And deciding how and what to save for, right? And it's best for both partners to be informed and engaged. Okay. Next up, and please stop me if you have any questions, is I want to please change our vocabulary. And this is so important. Is extremely a gajillion, bajillion important percent. Like it's so important, okay? The word ours, okay? Regardless of how and with what you came into your marriage, it's all one now. It's all ours. Okay, there's no mine, there's no yours, there's no you're this and my that, right? Our loans, our student loans, man, those student loans, right? Our cash, our cars, our bills, our accounts, our house, right? Be very careful because the language you use, like what are thoughts? Thoughts only happen with words, even in your own head, right? So that's why language is so important, because language guides how we think, or it creates the boundaries for our thinking, right? So the words we use affect how we think. How we think can also affect how we feel. How we think and feel can affect what we do, right? So we need to discipline our language. So use ours and be careful about this, right? Because and it's okay to correct yourself while you're speaking, just so you can ensure this discipline is there in your family, right? Like sometimes, like there's one car that one spouse drives and another car that the other spouse drives, right? And you say, oh, your car and my car, right? Try to, as much as you can, try to refer to like the brand of the car or something, just to make it neutral, right? So it's all ours, right? And that's very important. Another thing, usually this is the only point where people have a lot of controversy on, and I'm open to that, is soon after you're married, make all your accounts joint. And there are some accounts where you can't make them joint, so like retirement accounts. So for those, just make sure you set your beneficiaries to the other person, to your spouse. And for some people, like some people have businesses and things like that, there are some special considerations, like for risk management and other things like that will lead to separate accounts. But this doesn't apply to most people, but I just want to create some space for that. Also, use an online financial management tool or a financial aggregator that pulls like the accounts that are in your name and the accounts in the other person's name, that pulls them all into one view. So you always see all of your information together all at once, right? And you can give each other access to that like account so that you can log into the aggregator. Both of you can see everyone's accounts together. You can get it, it sums everything up and all that. And yeah. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of people laughing. Is there like a chat thing going on or something that I'm missing? All right. Okay. Fine. All right. All right. So that's that. Let me also. Any questions so far? By the way. Okay. There is a question. There is a question. Let me. How do I post?
Yes, in the chat, Makar.
Oh, thanks for telling me. Why can't I find? Oh, I see the chat now. Okay, one sec. Good. How does the administrator encourage the partner to participate? Yeah, I mean, we need to think of this as there's a few ways. First, you can create like regular check-ins. Like every month, we're going to review, right? That's fine. Couples, to have a healthy marriage, you got to be intentional. I mean, to have a healthy life, you need to be intentional, right? So, like, you need to think ahead and say, I need to, like, can we plan to meet every month and like talk about this stuff? That's one thing. The other thing too is think of the non-administrator, the person who's not holding the administrator role, think of them as a client. Like what I mean by that is, what do you do when you're talking to a client? You kind of like choose the messages in a way that like are tailored to them, right? Like don't. Our goal is not to like dump everything that's going on. It's not to dump like look at all the hard work I'm doing. It's not to dump like look at how scared I am. It's not to dump all these things on the other person. It's to ensure that they have the minimum amount of information they need in order to fulfill their executive responsibility, right? So that's like I'll tell you, it's hard because we know so much. Like the administrative person. Sorry, I just have to clear my throat. The person who has the administrative role, they are they're like so into the details, right? Like there's papers flying around, paperless emails, money moving around all the time. Like I know for myself, I check my accounts, my accounts. I just messed up my own rule. Our accounts. Gosh, it's hard, right? I've been doing this for years. I check our accounts like multiple times a day, right? So, but I mean, Monica, sorry, I don't mean to speak speak for us. But I know Monica doesn't care, right? Like she just doesn't care, right? So like it's not, it doesn't make any sense for me to be like just sharing. Like it, and plus it's gonna create like a bad taste in the other person's mouth. And I don't mean to use myself as a reference point, like, so sorry to use a personal example, but these are general things. So what you need to do is think of like, my spouse, you know, needs to share with me in the decision making, right? They must, because we're a couple, we're married, we decide together, right? We're in charge, we co-lead, right? So but they don't need to know everything, right? So what can I prepare for them at our check-in time? I hope that answers the question. Okay, all right, great, thanks. And also just slow it down, like, you know, like again, financial literacy like really varies across people in general in society. So this, and within couples. So it just takes time for people to learn. All right. So next up is I want to talk about just two more things: money management activities and pointers. So complete the prepare and enrich handout on financial management and or the SoFi financial planning exercise. Number two is check your credit for free on annualcreditreport.com. If anybody doesn't know what credit is, it's a standardized history of money that you owe and money that you can borrow. Like if you have a credit line or a credit card, right, or a line of credit. So and your performance on that credit. So like how good are you at paying back what you owe on time, right? That's what your credit report shows. There's a summary number called a credit score. And like we all need to, at a minimum, just know our credit scores, know what's on our credit reports. I know a family, they were about to buy a house. They were going to co-sign on the thing. All of a sudden, the husband found out that because of a library book that he didn't return 15 years ago and that he owed like a few $100s on, then destroyed his credit. He couldn't co-sign on the loan, right? So it's an extreme example, but just know what's on it. Nowadays, everybody's offering free credit reports all the time. Your credit cards usually give you your credit score for free and all these things. So just make sure you're getting it from a reputable place, so you're not just putting your social security number out there. Oh, credit. So let me actually help you. Credit Karma and Experian. Credit Karma gives you Equifax and TransUnion, and Experian gives you Experian. And you'll get all your information from there. That's all you need, actually. That's all you need. Credit Karma and Experian. Some questions coming in. Do you have any concern or reservation about putting your login information into apps like mint.com? Personally, I don't have a concern. I've used 3 different financial aggregators like over the last 10 or 15 years. I've used Mint. Currently I use Personal Capital, and I have used an old service that kind of closed down called Yodlee. I don't have any concerns about it, but again, like there's no zero risk, but think about it too. Like, there's also a risk of your account. This is just my personal opinion now, So there's a risk of the bank getting hacked, right? So it's not like, there's just risk everywhere, right? Like the only way to avoid risk in life is to be dead, right? So like, don't let risk paralyze you from healthy practices, right? So, and just be really careful about that, because sometimes we paralyze ourselves out of anxiety. And so you end up missing out on such a huge benefit because we're so worried about getting hacked. And sometimes the information that we expose ourselves to, or that algorithms send our way, like on Facebook or whatever, or based on our search history that comes probably driven by our anxiety, is all negative information, right? So then we get really scared, and then we don't do things that we probably should be doing, right? And I've seen that in a lot of people's investment decisions. They're just scared and they make mistakes. It's really sad, actually. I hope that answers the question. So feel free to. The short answer is I don't have concern personally. So, but you do you, and do whatever you and your spouse agree on. Like it's about you guys. It's about the two of you. Is there such a thing to be too focused on financials? If so, how do you recognize that it is a little too much? How do you strike a healthy balance? Maybe I can pull, if we have some time, some points from a separate talk about money and the heart. If we do that, but and also I have some things about being a good steward and some points there, so we can do that. Just like, you know what? Maybe another time we can do the money and the heart thing, because like our relationship to money as Christians is very important, right? It's very, very important. And what I was trying to talk about here is more the relational aspects and like kind of managing money as a couple, and co-leading in that process and sharing in that stewardship. But what does money mean for the Christian is a separate topic, and I think that's something we can like spend a lot of time on later. Because it's easy to rush through it. Um, so number three is list out and add up both of your money assets and liabilities. Assets are what the things that you have, like, so it's just cash and investments. Liabilities are what you owe, everything you owe. And also assets is like a house or a car and stuff like that, like things that have value. Projected monthly income and expenses. And I want to show this, this spreadsheet here, which I'll also share. So you can put like, partner one, partner two, your income, and like what's your current spending on each of these things, and what's your future budget plan. And what I find is when you force yourself to do this, it really, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like really? Is that how it is? And then what you can do too is maybe 1 month after the next one is be like, wait, I don't know if we need to adjust this, or we were very unrealistic at how much we spend on eating out, right? So it really helps to do this, because what the sad thing is that what's happening to couples a lot of times is that they're not doing any work, and money is just coming in and out and they don't realize it. Sometimes they're getting cheated out on fees and things like that from other places, but also there's what you can't manage what you're not measuring. And that's like a general leadership or management fact, right? You can't manage what you're not measuring. So you have to force yourself to measure. Can you share these spreadsheets? Yes, I will. I will so share the spreadsheets. Yes. I'm going to share the spreadsheets and all this stuff. All right. So discuss these together, right? And see if you want to make any changes, right? And just listen to the other person, right? And number four, get help when you need it and ask for advice from a professional. Let me just tell you, like, just so nobody feels like getting advice is weird. Let me just say a few things about advice. One is I have lots of knowledge, right? Like I studied a lot of these things and all this stuff. And like, I'm not usually confused by whenever I read something online. However, when I have to make a big financial decision, I call people. I just call them, just get opinions. I call professionals, like other professionals. I call 2 or 3 advisors. I call people who have made the decision that I'm trying to make to see what their experience is. So I just try to gather opinions and information to try to challenge my own thinking, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that at all, right? I just want to tell you how to be good stewards of money, and I took this out of the other talk, and I'll just throw this in there. Two slides left. Be knowledgeable. Be knowledgeable. Just know things. Let me see. There's some more questions. Can you email that to us, please? Yes, I was going to ask that. Yes. Okay. Be knowledgeable. How much do you have and need? What does your credit look like? How does credit work? Be responsible and risk aware. Be responsible and risk aware, right? For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, right? Like that's part of responsibility, whether he has enough to finish it. Lest after he's laid a foundation is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish, right? So be aware of your risks, right? Like what can go wrong, and don't rush decisions. Next is don't spend more than you have or spend without thinking ahead. Avoid bad debt, like credit card debt is difficult, again, sometimes we're forced to do it, but avoid it. And a good explanation of bad debt is debt that doesn't facilitate things that are aligned with your values. That's why it's important to talk about your values. Avoid easy money. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Too good to be true, it probably is. In Proverbs, this verse here, these 2 verses are actually relevant for 2 points. He who has a slack hand becomes poor. So like if you're lazy, and easy money is like lazy money. Right? Easy money, that's lazy money, right? He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame, right? So the other thing too is save and have a cushion. It's the same point, right? He who gathers in summer, right? Like gathering in the summer is like saving up for when you cannot gather anymore, right? So that's what Solomon is telling us in his great wisdom. And last but not least, these points here are: don't give to just anyone who asks. Be careful about enabling others' irresponsibility, right? So just be careful about that point. And when it comes to giving and generosity, you have to be aligned with your spouse, right? Because that's a value, right? Generosity is a value. And what does it even mean? That's an executive decision, right? When you actually go and give, that could be the administrative role. It's a good example, right? Like, should we give? Who should we give to? Why should we give? Executive responsibility, right? The actual going and giving of it is the administrative role, right? So just be careful, because, whenever you have money, much or little, everybody wants your money. Just remember that. And I'm not saying that to make you anxious, but like, we have to be careful about that. And I realized, by the way, I forgot to say something about financial advisors. And Bullis will probably have other things to add to that too. But just let me get to that later. Give and be generous. Use your money for good. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. I want to tell you something about first fruits. First fruits is a really beautiful concept. Actually, Christ is the first fruits of those who have slept, which means he's the first person to enter the kingdom of heaven of all, like in the flesh, right after he ascended. Also, the first fruits is something we apply in our liturgy all the time, right? You might notice that you might not really pay attention to this happening, and maybe it doesn't happen in a lot of our newer churches, just because we're kind of a bit more like efficiency oriented. But in a lot of like the older churches, what happens is that when the priest is distributing all the holy bread after the liturgy, you might notice that they take the first one of that's left and they give it to the priest, the whole one, right? And they give that because that's part of the point of the first fruits, right? You give the first of the sacrifice to the man of God, or like to God, right? The same exact thing happened with Elijah when he went to the widow, right? Or she had some flour and some oil, and she was gonna make some bread, and she was gonna eat it with her son and die. That was it. That's what she said to him. He said, "No, can you give it to me? Give me the first bread, right? Give me what you make." And so, which is like counterintuitive. Like, why would you give to him? She just told you that she's going to give it to her son and die, right? He's saying, give it to me, right? And of course, there's many other sacrifices in the Old Testament that have to be first fruits. But the point is that all of our possessions are the Lord's. And we say in the liturgy, which actually is something that Solomon said, is we offer unto you what is yours. Like the priest says, we offer unto you what is yours upon every condition, every condition, right? Everything we have is the Lord's, right? Even all the money, not just the money we tithe, right? All of it is the Lord's. So give and be generous. Give and be generous. Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive, right? Determine your values about money. We talked about that point. And then an advanced tip. This one is advanced. This is like the advanced one, okay? Whenever there is a money decision, and I'm talking especially when other people are involved, not just you and your spouse, okay? Think about things in the following order, and the order is important, okay? Emotions of those involved, right? Relationships between people involved. Think about dyads. Like, think, even if there's 5 people, try as much as you can to think like 2 by 2, like every 2 people, right? Just try as much as you can. It's a little bit of therapy stuff in there, but just try. Economic and financial scenarios. Like, in other words, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if that happens, right? Do that like 30 times, right? Because once the money's out and you make the decision, it becomes a lot more hairy, right? And then finally, the money decision itself, right? So be very careful about this stuff. All right. So that's all I had in terms of like content. I just want to say 2 final things. One, we still have this other topic about money in the heart. Maybe we could do it a later time in life. And it's a really important topic because it's not about marriage and stuff like that. It's more about the Christian perspective on money, right? And there's so much that we need to say about this topic. And the last point is just on financial advisors is like, it's kind of like, a father of confession, kind of like a therapist. You need to find someone you can trust and you're comfortable working with. but also be very clear, because when it comes to financial advisors, they, a lot of times they get a fee for what they're doing. And you need to ensure that their fee is worth the value they're providing. That's all I want to say. So I'm not saying don't use financial advisors. I'm just saying, like, make sure that you don't replace being informed with having an advisor, right? Like, be educated, learn, and then ensure that if you're going to give a fee, that you're getting value out of that. That's all I want to say. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? Should I check the chat? Okay, there's nothing in the chat either.
Hey, Makar, I have a question actually. On the advanced tip number 2, can you elaborate a little bit on the relationships between people involved about the dyads? I didn't quite get that.
Yeah, I mean, like part of, I'm trying to find like a straightforward way to explain this, which is that people, money has like hooks on people's hearts in very different ways, right? Like, there's a lot of emotions associated with money for every person, right? And like, not, there's a beautiful thing in the book of Acts where it says that the people in early on in the early church, they sold all their possessions and laid the money at the apostles' feet, right? Which says something so nice, that money should be like at our feet. It should just be like a tool, right? But for 90% of people, for most of us, you pull a little too much. Like, I'll give you an example from my own heart. Like, for this is a personal thing. There's a person who borrowed $200 from me, right? And didn't even care about, like, didn't even bother talking about it or spending that money, or paying that money back, right? I mean, definitely my heart is weak. I should have, I should be willing to just like forget it. But for some reason, it still lingers in my mind, right? Just that specific, the way the person borrowed the money, the things they promised, and all of that, right? Now, we need to know now, because of the difference in each person's heart, when you bring 5 people together and you're about to talk about a decision, right? For some people, when they're about to invest their money or they're saying something about money, it means like status for them. They want to put a lot of money out and they want to make decisions and they want to exert themselves, right? For some people, they might feel cheated by another person in that same group, right? Also think about things like siblings and inheritance, right? Like, and different people need the money differently, right? Like, these are, so that's actually a very good example. Actually, it's a very good example. Like, when you think about siblings and inheritance from parents, right? Different siblings need the money differently, right? And so they have different ways of thinking about what's going to come, what's not going to come, when, how, why, all that, right? So before saying anything, talking about anything, we need to pray and think about each person, think about all the relationships, think about, like, another example, and then just to keep using this sibling thing, and you are my sibling, so is like, think about the spouses of the siblings, right? Like, who have an equal vote in the marriage, but are not the same as biological children in the family of that one family of the siblings, right? So there's so much going on. There's so many voices, right? So much going on. And all this is, it's very hard. Like, I can give more examples, but I'm just trying to say that you have to think about every person involved and how they're related to each other, how they have related to each other in the past, what their needs are, and all of those types of things. I don't feel like that's a straightforward answer, but I hope that is like creating some clarity for you, Tina.